we learned how to swim. They throw you in the lake up here when you were in diapers almost.
And just so you can swim.
Oh yeah.
I wish I could have. I was in Chicago and they didn't throw us in the lake.
No, they didn't.
No.
No, they didn't throw you in.
No, and I still don't know how to swim today, but that's all right.
Oh, you do it, don't?
I don't.
Oh.
No.
I tell you what, it's a good thing I learned. My sister and I almost drowned.
Okay.
Shortly after we moved to Idlewild, in fact.
Okay.
Yeah, we almost drowned, and only because we knew how to swim. My sister was a lot larger than me.
Yes.
And we were at what they call the gravel pit. You know what the gravel pit is?
Yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
We were at a gravel pit, and she had me on her back.
Uh-huh.
And I was saying, Carol, let's don't go out so far, because you know you can be right here in the gravel pit. Next thing you're over your head.
Yes.
And next thing I know, we were just going down, down, down. And I remember my whole life flashed in front of me. So it's a fact when you're close to death like that, that really happens. I remember my mother, I guess I had my hands around my sister's throat, and my mother turned me around and said, swim, Sondra, swim. Yeah. And she had me towards the shore, and I just started swimming. Really? And she was able to bring my sister in.
That's amazing.
Because she couldn't bring us both in. Yeah, how can you bring two kids in at one time? And she left one of us out, one of us would have died. So she was able to turn me around, because by that time my sister was unconscious. Self-preservation, you don't realize it. You know, I was just holding on to her, but keeping her under. Yeah. Because, you know, you're lightweight in water. I don't know if you know that. It doesn't matter how much you weigh. Yeah. You're really very lightweight, you know. So I was able to hold her under. Yes. Because of weight don't make a difference when you with the water.
And you remember that. And you was able to swim. So you learned how to swim at that time.
I learned how to swim as a kid up here.
That's amazing.
But I used it later on in life is what I'm saying, because I knew how to swim.
Now, did you swim in the Ottawa beach much, or what did you call it, the island or just the beach?
That's why I learned how to swim. That's why I tell people. That's why I was thrown in the water in diapers. Okay. That's how we learned to swim, right in Idlewild Lake.
Idlewild Lake. And what you remember fish places on that lake too? Fish, they call it a fish place.
Oh, you mean where they have all the little fish?
No, what they ate. They call it Shrimp Shack or something like that. It was a restaurant like that.
Oh, that was probably later
on in life. Okay.
When I lived here, the only thing, they had the Phil Giles Hotel. Yep. They had that. They had the Glass House. They had a lot of little, like, sweetheart motels. You've seen that right there? Yep. These are the things that were very prominent when I was a child. But see, do you know what Idlewild's demise was? No. Why it died?
No. I've heard of some stories, but I've heard a few parts.
Okay. Idlewild's demise was, and I brought Channel 12 News up here. They did a big story. When civil rights movement was passed. Okay. 64, 63, 64. That was Idlewild's demise, because blacks no longer had to come this far to be able to use the beaches, use the hotels, use the restaurants. Okay, so the people that used to come up here to be free of all of that, they stopped coming.
Because you didn't have to go that far.
They didn't have to go that far. So all that left was the locals up here. And I really believe I'm the last generation, because when I was born, Idlewild, I think, was only 12 years old. Okay. That's why I think I'm the last generation that really appreciate or can tell you about the way it was, because I lived during that time. Yes. But that shut down everything. So for years, nothing went on up here. Now, for years, a lot of people my age resent it coming back, but I don't. I think it's a beautiful thing. You can't keep things the way it used to be. Yes, yes. It's dead now. Let's have some new blood. And I'm seeing all of this every year. More and more people are coming up. And, you know, I don't know, you know, people might be upset when I say this, but I don't have a problem with integration up here. I mean, I know it's called the Black Garden of Eden.
Yeah, that's what they call it.
Yeah, okay. But that was then. Actually, if you do statistics, there are more white that live here than blacks now. I don't have a problem with that, except if you're white or black. If you're going to come up, make the property look better. Yes. Bring something to it. Don't just come up here and think you can just put up a tent. Yes. Or move in one of these houses, I think they call blights, when they're about done, you know. Don't do that, you know. So, yeah, you can be upset that it's being mixed, but not because of color. Okay. Let's be upset if if I had moved here and I had my property and I did the modular up, and I had some tent here and it's about to fall apart, then I don't blame you for being upset if you're from here.
I understand.
You know, but if you don't know that I'm from here, but this is where I'm from. If I'm coming back, make Idlewild look better.
Beautiful.
Do better. So a lot of people think, well, it should stay the way it was. Well, it was nothing after everybody left.
Yeah. So, Sondra, where were you when Martin Luther King was assassinated or shot?
I was in Flint. I lived in Flint.
Okay.
And I don't think we even had a TV of our own, even though it's in the 60s. I got married my first time at 17, and we didn't
17?
Yeah, back then, and a lot of people will say, but one thing about me is that I have no shame.
Okay.
I mean, I don't mean anything I do is cool. I don't mean that, but I mean, in order for people to see where you come from,
yes,
you got to talk about where you come from in order to know where you are now, is what I mean.
Yes.
So I got married at 17. I had my son at 18.
Okay.
And my first husband, I had nothing. But I remember I was sweeping the floor, and I heard on the radio that Martin Luther King had been assassinated.
Wow.
I never forget that. Same with with John F. Kennedy. I remember where I was. And I always thought, if they kill Martin Luther King, it's going to be, you know.
Yeah.
But.
So you're about teen, were you like teen?
Yeah, I was in my teens.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
And so what happened? What was
well, I remember riots. There weren't any in Flint, but I do remember in Detroit how things broke out. I remember losing a cousin. He was laying on the ground dead. And someone put in the newspaper that someone shot too soon. And I remember that. But like I said, back then I didn't follow it a lot because it really, as I grew older, I appreciated that.
Yes.
But when you married young and you dropped out of school, all these things don't really mean much to you. It's when you get older. So as I got older, I really appreciated all of that.
I see. So now in Detroit or Flint, you were an officer. You became, what were some of the jobs or what that you did?
So I'll briefly. Well, a lot of people don't understand that I'm an advocate now for school.
Okay.
Even when I go to Myers or Walmart and they're working, the cash register, I'll say, "Are you work at? Are you in school in Ferris?" No, I'm just, and I say, education is everything.
Yes.
And I tell them sometimes when I'm talking to people, especially young people, and I never say old. I'm getting older, but my friends will tell you, I don't see old because you might as well lay down and die. Well, girl, so I tell anybody, if you ask me my age, you never hear me say,
Yeah.
Because for one thing, if you don't want to tell your age, to me, you're telling God you're not appreciated for still being here.
That's right.
He can stop your age. Everybody want to live forever, but it don't mean if I don't tell my age, I don't look it. Tell your age.
Tell your age.
And if I don't look it, that's God. Thank you, Jesus. I'm still here.
Yes.
So I say that to say I started off getting pregnant, like I said, at 17.
Okay.
I had no support.
Okay.
I mean, I will never disrespect my mother or my father, but some things I went through as a child, I'm never going to share with people because the Bible tells you that. What I think and what I feel, I'm not going to ever.
Yes.
Okay.
You don't want to make nobody sad or anything for that, or look down on you.
I don't want them to look down on my family.
Yeah.
But I will say, because of the way I was raised, it's why I'm here where I am today.
I got you.
But it wasn't because something good. It wasn't the support. It was, I tell you, at the age of 13, I was standing on the corner of Leith and Industrial. We lived over a fish market. This is Flint.
Okay.
And on one side, I was walking, and on one side of the street was a Buick factory. And it was a place, it was called the Beer Vault. And this is where the men that worked at Buick would go on their lunch hour. It used to be a bank, but as white people moved out and black people moved in, they no longer had a bank there. They had a beer place where you could go drink.
Okay.
Because that's been our weakness for years. We'll spend money on alcohol. And again, the other side knew that. So they knew we weren't going to be putting a lot of money in the bank, but we would put a lot of money in alcohol. And so I'm looking at the beer vault, and on this side was a Coney Island, and back in the day they had a lot of Chinese laundries where you would go and have your clothes cleaned.
In Flint.
In Flint.
Okay.
All of this I'm telling you now is Flint.
Okay.
There wasn't much more to tell you about Idlewild except we horseback ride, swim, and
Gotcha. No, I want to hear about that.
and I met all the big stars, but I didn't know they were stars.
I want to get back to that because I want to see who you met too. But go ahead, explain that to you.
So I walked up there, and I looked and I said to myself, if I ever get away,
okay,
I'm never coming back. I say that because the white men would come out on their lunch, and the prostitutes, that was their corner where I said this, the pimps would bring bricks, heated bricks, for their prostitutes to stand on in between their tricks. I saw all of this at 13. They had a hotel called the Grant Hotel.
Okay.
And my cousin and I used to walk down there, and we knew exactly what they did when they turned tricks. We saw everything at 13. I would have white men approach me. Now, here's the difference in black men today and black men back in the 50s. They respected their little black girls like us. They would tell the white men, don't you even approach.
Wow.
They called up their little sister, don't you even approach my little sisters.
Wow.
They protected us. But the prostitutes, and that's all you had to look up to, they always dressed. It wasn't the crackheads and the things that you didn't see that. These prostitutes would be sharp.
I'm sure.
They smell good. I mean, here's the difference in the years.
Yes.
You know, they had this stuff they drink called turban hydrate.
Okay.
A turban quiet, something like that. And that's how they got high. They smoked their little weed, and they later on came the hard drugs.
Okay.
But these prostitutes would stand on these heated bricks. These men, they would bring the bricks out and they would stand on in between their tricks. And you know, the tricks of the men that they took to have sex with, they called them. And they called the pimps Johns. They were Johns and also, you know, just straight out pimps. And I stood on that corner and I said, if I ever get away.
You're not coming back? And
I didn't know how. I mean, you know, we went to church with my mother sang in the choir. It wasn't that we went to church every day and all that. And but I just knew that I never wanted my children to experience what I experienced. I never wanted. So when I got pregnant and had to drop out of school back then, Lavelle, there was no alternative school. If you got pregnant back in the 50s, 60s, you could never go back to school. So I had to drop out. I always had a flat stomach. So when I started showing, I had to quit school.
Oh my goodness.
So it took me years because the first husband, I knew after 8 years we weren't going to be married. Because his folks had a lot of money. And back then, as a child, you think, well, if I marry him, I marry money. You don't realize that's not your money.
That's
you know. But I did private duty nursing. I danced professionally. In fact, I saw this woman called Lottie the Body right there, Paradise Gardens.
I heard that name.
And I used to peek through. We stand on beer crates. And I would see all the showgirls. And I say, one day I'm going to dance just like her. And I ended up dancing professionally for a while, trying to make ends meet. Now, my husband worked in the factory, made money, but, you know, he was a womanizer. That's where his money went. So I did private duty nursing. I danced professionally. Every kind of job that I could get so my kids would not have to ever live where I lived. Sometimes I'd have $2 to last me 2 weeks.
Wow.
2 weeks after I filled my little Volkswagen up, after I divorced him. But I always encouraged school. Now, my daughter worked at Kroger's. I don't know if you ever heard of Kroger's store. She worked there in the 10th, 11th grade, and say, Mama, I hate this. But she always wanted to be in education. But I always kept them, and not that I don't love my people, because anybody know I'm real. But I knew if my kids were in the better areas, they were going to get the better education. And I mean, it's a fact. So like I say, sometimes I'd have $2 to last 2 weeks. But they were in the best schools that were there. They had swimming pools, although we lived in apartments. I couldn't afford a house. In fact, my husband and I never bought a house. This husband, we've been married 47 years almost, until we bought this one because we know white flight still works. You still got it, okay? So they were around swimming pools. Their friends' parents were lawyers, doctors, so they knew all of these things were possible. So my daughter has her doctorate in education. She's been a professor at LSU. She's been a principal at Southeast University in Louisiana,
Yes.
and now she has Fawn's Den.
Okay.
You know, the little restaurant there on 10. Our son played hockey because he was very